Earlier today, we caught up with Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew in Brandon, Manitoba. Premier Kinew, welcome back to Power Play. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me back.
Now, there are still some wildfires that are affecting people in your province. Let's start with those who are under evacuation orders right now. When may they be able to return home?
Well, there's about 670 Manitobans in that category right now, most of them from Cranberry Portage, a community which hosts a large boarding school for children from Northern First Nations, as well as folks who live in some of the outlying regions around Flin Flon. The people from the Wildfire Service and the Office of the Fire Commissioner, all the people who've been battling the blaze have been doing a great job. And we're hearing some encouraging signs that due to those efforts, combined with some improvements in the forecast, people might be able to go home soon. But again, I want to encourage people to listen for the official notice before they do head back. And what we're working on as a provincial government is an additional layer of assistance. We've been supporting these people since they've been out of their homes with things like hotel rooms and food. And now we want to be able to help folks stand their lives back up against when it is safe for them to return home.
Yeah, there was an announcement by your government and the federal government today of nearly $40 million together in funding for things like firefighting equipment and training for those wildfires. How much of this will go towards prevention and mitigation for future fires?
Well, prevention and mitigation is important, and part of that is having the right tools to do the job. And so we're happy to stand with the federal government to make these shared investments into the province of Manitoba to help keep people safe here. Of course, part of this is going to help assist the response to this wildfire season as well. One of the challenges that we have in Manitoba is that we are in a rebuilding phase with our provincial wildfire service. Again, we just had a change in government last fall, and seeing this wildfire season start a little earlier than expected has really underscored the need for us to make these types of investments. We want to make sure that the people fighting wildfires in Manitoba have the resources, they have the wages to be able to go to work each day and come home safe. And of course, while I'm highlighting their important efforts, I do also want to thank the people who've come out from Ontario to help with our response, the Ontario wildfire fighters, and of course, the folks who are going to join us from New Brunswick and Quebec on the weekend as well.
Yeah, a good number of experts have drawn the link between wildfires and climate change. And you've been one of those premiers saying that we have to fight climate change, but you've also pushed back against the federal price on pollution. Today, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre suggested a summer pause on gas and diesel taxes. Do you support something like that?
Well, we've done that. We brought the provincial fuel
with respect, Premier, on the federal level. I just want to make sure, because I know that you've paused your gas tax. I'm asking whether or not you support that on the federal level.
Yeah, we did that in Manitoba. We brought the provincial fuel tax to zero on gasoline and diesel, and it's to help Manitobans during a time of inflation. The thing that we can point to in Manitoba is that we have low emissions relative to other provinces, and it's because of the investments that we've made into Manitoba hydroelectricity and into the blue-collar jobs and middle-class jobs that support that low-carbon electricity grid. We've been able to make those investments towards a clean environment future without a price on carbon here in Manitoba. So I think there's a path forward here for us to do right by the environment, to ensure that we're fighting the effects of climate change, like the wildfires we're living through right now, while also helping the average Manitoban, including folks in this region who are dealing with the high costs of inflation. So we're definitely supportive of further action to help people on the affordability side, and we're taking steps to also advance the needle when it comes to fighting the climate change in our province.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that because you took up the Prime Minister on his challenge to all of the premiers that if any of them had a better option to the federal backstop for putting a price on pollution, that they should bring it forward. So where are you in those discussions with the federal government for a Made in Manitoba solution?
Yeah, so our Made in Manitoba approach won't have the federal backstop. It won't have that consumer-facing carbon price. You've seen some of the steps in our budget to incentivize people to electrify transportation, to electrify home heating. We're happy to work with the feds on those heat pumps and other initiatives where we can. And we're going to go ahead and move with an agenda to ensure that we're doing our part here in Manitoba to solve the climate crisis. At the same time, of course, so we're dealing with some very real impacts in terms of hundreds of Manitobans displaced, hundreds of people in the field with a very complex, impressive, coordinated response to fight the wildfires. And while that's taking place, we're going to continue making the case to Ottawa that this plan that we have for climate action in Manitoba is one that responds to our local economy and the needs of people in our province.
Have you presented that plan to the Prime Minister? Because he says that any plan that he wanted to see would have to, pollution could not be free. So is pricing pollution where the two of you can't get on the same page, or is that something that is in your plan that you've presented to the feds?
No, we're not going to bring that forward. Again, we're not going to have a Manitoba carbon tax. We believe in helping people out on the affordability side while taking action directly to fight climate change. And the reason why we show up at the table for these types of conversations is that we know through engagement and negotiation that we can get folks onto the same page. So it's our hope that the federal government is going to recognize the important work that we're doing in Manitoba and is going to work with us on this approach.
But if the Prime Minister has been clear that he wants to see a price in pollution in any provincial plan, how do you think you can get the federal government on the same page?
I think that we have a very strong case to make that Manitoba has lower emissions without a price on carbon, and the vast majority of those investments happen before the federal backstop as well. And so I think there's a really strong case that the economic resources to fight climate, to fight wildfires, are things that we're putting out the door. And the federal government should be able to recognize the good work that we're doing here, also to ensure that life is kept affordable here in Manitoba.
I just want to ask you in closing, so what has the federal government's response been to your plan if it seems like they are set on one side of it and you're set on the other side, and it doesn't seem like the two of you are getting together on a price on pollution?
Well, what I would say is I'm always optimistic that the federal government will see the good work that we're doing here in Manitoba and perhaps follow our lead in terms of fighting climate and keeping life affordable for the average person.
So what has their reaction been, though, to your plan?
Well, they're inviting us to continue engage with them, so I take that as a good sign. Like I said, whenever we're at the table, I'm always optimistic that we're going to be able to persuade people to see things the way that we do here in Manitoba. And here in Manitoba, we have a relatively low carbon footprint, while we're also taking action to help people who are dealing with the real impacts of inflation and high interest rates. So again, I think the best thing for us to do by the climate is to show the working class, the middle class, the blue collar person that we're on your side when it comes to affordability. And then we're also going to take action directly, whether it's on wildfires or incentivizing cleaner forms of transportation. We're going to get these things done together. They're not mutually exclusive choices.
Sorry, Premier, I just want to be clear. So did the federal government indicate that it's met their bar for putting a price on pollution or not? Will you still have the federal backstop applied to Manitoba or not?
We don't need a federal backstop in Manitoba. I'm very optimistic that they're going to come around to our way of thinking.
Okay. Manitoba Premier Wab Kinew, thank you so much for joining us today on Power Play. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.